The Chicago Bulls face yet another sub-500 team at home, and we can't have really any confidence on how the Bulls are going to perform considering how they've been up and down throughout the season, and there's a vast difference between how this team plays against the above 500 teams and the below 500 teams. We're going to preview this game tonight against the OKC Thunder. We're also going to talk about rumors going around about trades and everything else. We're going to get to all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
All right, Bulls fans. So the Bulls face the OKC Thunder tonight. And as everybody knows, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is just playing on a different level this season. And I think when you look at, this team coming in, yeah, you want to focus in on Shai averaging 31 points per game, but this is not a team that you can overlook. Yes, if we can win that point of attack defense with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and force him to have an inefficient night, it can really dictate what happens with this game. But you also got to look at Josh Giddey, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams. Listen, they have been cooking at times this season, and each one has picked their spots in a different way. Now, the center, Jalen Williams, you don't really expect, he's not a big-time scoring threat at all. But the other Jalen Williams that plays power forward for them, the 6'6" forward, he can get to cooking, only averaging 11.7 points per game, but on 50% shooting so far this season. He is not a player that you want to overlook by any stretch of the imagination. Over the last 10 games, he's averaging 13.7 points per game on 50% shooting and 34% from the three-point line. So this is not a player that you want to overlook either. And so even if the Bulls are able to guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander very well, you do want to make sure that you don't allow the other things around him to go off either. In the last 10 games, Shai is averaging 30 points per game on 45% shooting from three and 52% shooting overall from the field. This is not a player you want to take lightly. Also, 4.8 rebounds, 5.6 assists. This is not a player that you want to overlook. And he's the player that cooked us the last time we played them. So you want to be locked in defensively for the Chicago Bulls. This is a team that has the type of team that has not matched up well for the Bulls. A young, scrappy team that is under 500 seems to be the kryptonite for the Chicago Bulls. And so in this game, especially considering, looks like we're not going to have DeMar DeRozan again tonight, and Zach LaVine suffered a hand contusion, doesn't seem to be something that's going to keep him out. But remember, the last time Zach LaVine suffered an injury with his hand last season, it really did affect his shooting stroke. It is on his right hand, so we'll see how that ends up happening with Zach LaVine. But this Bulls team has to be locked in defensively. You cannot overlook this OKC Thunder team, and I know I'm saying this, but again, Josh Giddey averaging 8 rebounds per game and leading the team at 5.6 assists per game. He is also very important. If you can disrupt him, you disrupt some of what the OKC Thunder are trying to do offensively. But Giddey, it shapes up that, he shouldn't be able to do much rebounding-wise against this team, but you just never know. We freaking allowed Denny to have 20 rebounds in the last game. Josh Giddey, another player on almost 50% shooting, averaging 15.5 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, 5.6 assists per game. This is not a player you want to overlook either. And that's been kind of the Achilles heel with the Chicago Bulls. And this is dates back to last season. If you have role players that can also fill it up, not necessarily ones that are averaging huge numbers over the course of the season, but if they have that potential to light it up offensively, it causes some issues for the Chicago Bulls. And so, like I said, when you shape up on paper, this is one of the type of team that has given the Bulls fits all throughout the season, and especially not having DeMar DeRozan in this game. Even though Zach LaVine showed up very well to lead the Chicago Bulls in scoring in the last game, decision-making down the stretch, things like that end up hurting the Bulls. Can they come in and execute a well-played game of basketball? That's what needs to be seen, again, at home. Hopefully they're not looking too far ahead into that Golden State Warriors game that we have at home on Sunday, which is an early game at 3, which is weird. I just tell you, it's always weird when basketball games are early because I'm so used to doing them at like 7, 8 o'clock at night. But regardless of that, that's a side note, side tangent. The Bulls have to be locked in this game. And as far as the offensive side of the ball, we need somebody to step up. It can't just be Zach LaVine. Now, Vooch is the likely candidate that you want to see have a big night, especially when you're looking at this front line from the OKC Thunder. Not an overly big front line. Their starting center is 6'9", 240 pounds. Vooch outweighs and has more length than him. And then it's Mike Makula, whatever, however you say his name. He's backing him up at 6'11", 240 pounds as well. Vooch needs to cook tonight. This is a night that we need Vooch and Drummond has to stay out of foul trouble to be effective for this team as well. We need him on the court. The best ability is availability, and it even sucks when it's not because of injury. You're not available because you can't stop fouling motherfuckers. So we need Drummond and Vooch to both be locked in this game, specifically in the rebounding battle. We still need another scorer. Even if Vooch does step in, have one of his 20 and 12 nights or whatever, we still need somebody else to come in and take on some of that load, whether it's spread out amongst a lot of players, whether it's just one. We need somebody else to step up in this game, and this cannot be a game in which passive P continues to be passive P. Again, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, those are going to probably be the players that he's guarding most of this time, and they aren't players that, again, they can fill it up. But if you're putting Patrick Williams on 6'6", 195-pound Jalen Williams, you better goddamn well be able to keep him out of this game, keep him off the boards. This is a game in which Patrick Williams' contributions, and if he's able to own his matchup, it's going to be evident on both sides of the ball. If they do leave Jalen Williams guarding Patrick Williams, I think they're going to probably put Lou Dort on P. Will, but we'll see. Because if P. Will's passive P, they don't need to have anybody guard him. The crowd can guard him. So we need Patrick Williams to not only take the open shots that come to him naturally in this offense, we do need him to do some dribbling. We do need him to call for the ball at times. We do need him, especially when Zach LaVine sits, to step up and be that secondary scorer to Vooch at that time, because I think the Bulls are always going to leave either Vooch or Zach LaVine in this game at all times. And in those times where it's Patrick Williams and Nikola Vucevic out there on the court, we need Pat to hit his shots. We need Pat to cut to the rim. We need Pat to do all these things, and we need this team to find him. So with that being said, this is a game that we're going to need Ayo, Patrick Williams, Caruso, Kobe. Somebody's going to have 2 out of those 4 players are going to have to step up in a major way for us to get to win this game on paper. Give Zach LaVine some help. And, to see how Zach LaVine deals with this hand injury again, doesn't seem like it's anything major. It's definitely not as bad as having torn ligaments in your thumb like last year with his hand injury. So we'll see how he's able to overcome it in this game, but somebody needs to step up and help Zach LaVine. We have to execute. Keep the turnovers down. Rebound the ball well. If you can win the rebounding battle against this OKC Thunder team, you're going to have to do it as a team. And if you can do it, get out in transition, get out in fast break, allow Ayo to get out in the open court, operate downhill. Those are the type of things that we're going to need to have success against the OKC Thunder in this game. Again, I'm over predicting wins and losses for the Chicago Bulls team because it can go any way on any given night by what they've shown. This is the type of team that gives the Bulls some issues. Let's see if they can overcome these issues, especially with DeMar DeRozan being out in this game. Let's see what they can do. All right, moving on from that, we got a rumor yesterday, a report. I don't want to call it rumor. Seems like it's from a side site. We got a report yesterday that Alex Caruso and Patrick Williams are both not available in trade talks, and this goes with something a little bit along. I didn't expect Patrick Williams at all being involved in trade talks. Caruso kind of surprises me because I do think Caruso could net you back some things, especially from a championship level team, but it really does point to the mindset that AK and Eversley have with this season is that they're not trying to give up any of their major pieces. They're not. They're trying to add to this team, not necessarily take away. And this is why when I did that video a few weeks ago, it was a members only video in which I talked about this is the time in which the Bulls should move that Portland pick. When you look at how Portland's moving down the standings, this is the time to capitalize off it if you do want to add to this team. Again, that's if they want to add something. Again, it wouldn't be significant. It wouldn't be like this huge deal. But if you want to add that bench, that role player, that size, that shooting, the Portland pick is the best path to get there. And then using some of the back end as filler to fill in that contract. So Portland Trailblazers right now, outside of the play-in, they're the 11th team in the Western Conference. So if you want to capitalize on that Portland pick, you may have missed your window, but now is the time for any team that's watching, monitoring, and saying, hey, we think that the Portland can maybe get hot around here, maybe make in the play-in, maybe sneak in the playoffs, and we can get that pick. You want to take advantage of that because the Bulls could very well lose that protection for nothing if Portland does fall completely out of this playoff picture, as they are right now. If they stay there, you're not going to get anything for the pick anyway. You might as well try to get the highest level role player that you can with that pick now, maybe packaging a DJJ. We'll talk more stuff because Casey Johnson was on the Hoops Hype podcast talking about other players that could be available. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. But Caruso and Patrick Williams not being available in trade talks, it surprises me a little, but not, like I said, with Pat, it doesn't surprise me at all. This front office, contrary to some Bulls fans, they're not giving up on Patrick Williams anytime soon. They are looking to make sure they capitalize, and if he hits his potential, it's done here in a Bulls uniform. So because of that, it's going to be a long time before they're willing to move on from Patrick Williams. The Caruso thing surprises me a little bit. Not too much, though. But let's get us into the last topic for today, and that is Casey Johnson on this Hoops Hype podcast and him talking about the team. They were asked him about the tension of Zach and Billy Donovan, and it seems like Casey Johnson does think that a little bit of that tension may still be there, and that's an interesting place for a team to be in, because usually when you see a team's best player and a team's coach, and some people can make the argument that DeMar's the best player, but when you see the team's highest paid player and their head coach kind of not be aligned, usually you would say, well, one of these guys are going to go soon. But it's more difficult to see that picture happening for the Chicago Bulls as they extended Billy Donovan. Zach LaVine just got his contract extension. Not to say that you can't move on from either one of those. But again, this is a franchise in which I highly doubt, doubt seeing Reinsdorf give the okay to fire a coach with 3 or more years left on his contract, and you still have to pay those years outright, and then you bring in another head coach that you still got to pay on top of that. So I don't see that necessarily happen. And the Zach LaVine, we've heard Zach is untouchable. So it kind of forces these guys to be in a position to kind of figure it the hell out. And it may not happen this season, right? That figuring it out, that them getting back on the same page may not happen until the offseason. So what does a second half of a season look like if there's remaining tension and underlying tension between your head coach and your highest paid player? It's going to be an interesting situation to watch, to see it, just monitoring. But man, it's such a far cry from where we were at our height last season, where everything was kind of rocking and rolling. Everybody just seemed like they were just in this love fest between the players and the coaches and everything. And now we sit at this place where reportedly tension between these two entities on the Chicago Bulls. And I guess we just have to see how it plays out in the long term of that. Now, other tidbits from this podcast that I found interesting is one, Kobe White. They talked about Kobe White, and they said that he has been included in talks, meaning, and the way that I took it, again, may not be the way that they meant it, but in listening to the show, the way that I took it in the tone is that they're not necessarily shopping Kobe to just get rid of him, but, naturally listening to deals, and it seems like they are not planning on moving on from Kobe for just anything. It seems like from Casey Johnson's that it's going to play out probably in restricted free agency. Casey Johnson mentioned something that I hadn't heard before, that Memphis could actually be interested in Kobe White, and that's interesting for a few different reasons. Memphis is a team that primarily, most of their biggest pieces on their team are homegrown. They drafted those players. They're trying to build in through that way. And if they see Kobe White as a player, especially with his increased defense and passing and things, as a player that could be, that could help out to fill out their bench, I think you have to explore that. Now, again, they said that Memphis was interested last summer, so not anything going on right now in the season. But it does seem like this Chicago Bulls team is not just going to move on from Kobe just to move on from him. While he does seem expendable, it seems like if they are going to move on from Kobe, they're going to want something substantial back for him. A, because he's younger, because of the areas that he improved on. So it really does seem like that. Now, again, another tidbit in this is Ayo Dosunmu's free agency. And Casey Johnson sounds confident that not any other teams are really going to offer Ayo Dosunmu an offer sheet. And if that happens, if we get to the point to where it's just a negotiation between Ayo and the Chicago Bulls, which I think that both sides are going to be motivated to keep him in Chicago, it's going to be interesting to see what that number is for him. Because like I said, the Bulls have decisions to make this offseason. And Ayo Dosunmu, while I think it's all but certain he's coming back to Chicago, I don't think they're going to let him go because they know what they got. Even with him being up and down this season, to get that type of talent in the second round, you want to hold on to that and cultivate that if you can. So I'm looking at Ayo Dosunmu. He's going to get a contract, but it's just, to see other teams so confident in the Bulls matching something to not even offer him something, that takes away something in the negotiation tactics for that. But again, I think both sides are going to be motivated. So we'll see. I don't think that, I'm not worried about Ayo Dosunmu leaving in the sense that I just don't think it's going to happen. But, anything's possible. This is the NBA. Weirder things have happened, but it is good to hear that, it's all signs are pointing to Ayo Dosunmu to return. Now, also in this, they talked about DeMar DeRozan and him being here. And Casey Johnson said he'd be extremely surprised if they moved any of the big three, and said that, while DeMar DeRozan is contract extension eligible this upcoming summer, you don't have to extend him until the end of next season if you want to. And that the fact that he's playing in the way that he has, that they are more than likely going to try to renegotiate with DeMar DeRozan. I know a lot of Bulls fans have hoped again that they're going to move on. I've said one that I do think that they could move on. And really overall throughout this interview, just you get the sense that this front office almost plans to run it back again. Even them talking about Nikola Vucevic saying that Casey Johnson, he sees Vucevic's future being in Chicago. So my question to that is then, how do you plan on improving this team? Unless you think Vuce is going to take a pay cut or DeMar is going to give you something back on that next contract. To bring back this big three and have as a long-term ploy, right? Meaning that you're re-signing Vuce for a 2 or 3 year deal. You're re-signing DeMar at the end of his deal at the end of next summer. You already got Zach LaVine locked in. How do you plan on improving this team in a meaningful way if you're not open to experimenting with that big three? That's the biggest question mark that came out of this interview for me, and I won't lie to you. In listening to this, I'm glad that, Casey Johnson isn't always 100% either. I do believe he is saying genuinely what he's gotten the vibe from just being around this team and this franchise, but it really does leave a lot to be like, okay, so how do you plan on improving? What do you plan? How do you plan on going around that improvement? And so to end the episode today, on top of that, you guys can let me know what you guys think about the KC. Make sure you go and listen to the podcast as well. But I want to look at players that I feel like need to step up in big ways for the Chicago Bulls in this playoff push. And the first one that I'm going to, and again, this is not ranked in any order. First one I'm going to is Patrick Williams. We need Patrick Williams to step up. He's going to be on this team, and because of that, we need you to grow in your role. Over the last 5 games, the numbers aren't that bad. Last 5 games, Patrick Williams, 12.6 points per game, almost 5 rebounds per game, 46% shooting from the field, and 50% from three-point range. That's a pretty solid improvement over the last 5 games. Now, that does not mean those are stats. If you watch the game, you know there's still been some very disappointing things in some of Patrick Williams' performances, even over those last 5 games. But if you take a snapshot of that, if Patrick Williams can average 13, 5 and 5, right? 5 and 4 on 46% shooting and close to 50% from three-point range, I'll take that. But you have to give us that consistently. These flashes where we get 18 points and then 4 points for the next 2 games ain't going to cut it anymore, Pat. We need Patrick Williams to step up, I think, in a meaningful way in this playoff push. And another one that I'm going to, Javonte Green. Javonte Green, second in the league in deflections. He's in the 90th percentile as far as defensive rating. He's in the 93rd percentile, averaging 2.4 steals per 36 minutes and 2.1 blocks per 36 minutes. We need Javonte Green's energy. He is the energizer off the bench for the Chicago Bulls team. And even though we've had some really good bench performances over this last stretch of games since he's been out, it's a completely different bench than what it is when Javonte's rocking and rolling and you got Gorn operating the offense, Drummond operating down low, Derrick Jones Jr. to fill in, and Kobe. Like, that is a very solid bench. But Javonte's energy can be the game changer. And when you look at the defensive improvements from Kobe White as well, you throw in Javonte Green, he's the energizer off the bench. I need him to step it up in this run as well. And Zach LaVine, listen, I know Zach has absolutely stepped up big time for the Chicago Bulls here lately. I'm not going to take away from that. You are the highest paid player on this team. You are the highest paid player in franchise history. You do not get a pass. I'm glad that you've been scoring better. I'm glad you've been giving us some things. I enjoy it. But we need your shooting. For a team that is bottom of the league in three-point attempts per game, we need Zach LaVine. Each 3 that he takes is even that more important. And if he can hit that at a solid rate, then that just brings so much along for the Chicago Bulls. Right now, this season, he's hitting the ball at a 46 three-point percentage from the three-point range, right? That puts him in the 96th percentile in the NBA. Over the last 13 games, he's been hitting it at a 56% three-point range. Nobody expecting you to maintain that 56%, but we need you to be in the high 40s, and we need you to be taking quite a few three-pointers per game because it opens the floor up a little bit more. So these are the 3 players I'm looking at having improvements. Now, we know we're going to be without Javonte for a while, so in replacement of Javonte Green, I'm going to put Ayo Dosunmu for the current run right now. But once Javonte comes back, we're going to need Javonte big time. Let me know what you guys think. As the Bulls try to do this playoff push, who do you think are the most important players that need to step up their game in a meaningful way over that stretch? But that's it for today's episode of Chicago Bulls Central. So make sure you're following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text and or voicemail for our mailbag episodes, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number 1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related because of you guys. And like I like to end everything on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.